Welcome back to the Griffin's Nest, Griffins. Thank you so much for joining me for this finale. We are finishing up Hocus Pocus 2 from Freeform's books. Hope you've been enjoying this reading. Let's go ahead and get into it. We got 3 chapters to get through. Quite a little number of pages, but I don't think it'll be too much of an issue. Alright, lesson 3 medicine, getting started. Alright, hope you all had a great holiday. Merry Christmas as of yesterday, finishing up Hanukkah, and hope you continue to have a great New Year. And Happy New Year. Just stay safe out there and be well. Do the best to your ability to stay aware of your surroundings and what's going on in the world so that you can stay safe and keep those that you love safe. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the next chapter. Whew. Last left our heroes with quite a bit of a tug of heartstrings on my end. I don't know about you. Travis and Katie are gone, and Poppy is virtually the only one standing. With Isabella. Do you remember what happened to Isabella? Because I'm kind of blanking. Oh dear. I guess we'll find out. Moonstone's last light. Down to the final duel, it seems. We're picking up on page 492 if you're following along. Let's get ready. Travis! I cry, struggling against Winifred's grasp. But it's no use. She presses the blade harder, painfully into my neck. Don't do anything rash, loverwort, Winifred taunts. He's gone now, and so is my rotten, ungrateful excuse for a mother. She spits to the wind, smirks, and attempts to adopt her mother's regal posture without much success. I look to Isabella, who's standing again, eyes locked on mine as she moves around the deck, inching closer. Right. Winifred is distracted, watching gleefully as the beings below swarm. Without Katie, Travis, and Elizabeth to run interference, the witches below have a clear path and begin to ascend the tower once more. Sister! Comes Sarah's voice moments before I see her float up to the tower's railing to my left, perched atop her Roomba. She touches down on the deck. Dost thou have the stone? Mary appears behind her, struggling to stay upright on her Swiffer. Are we immortal yet, Winnie? She crashes to the deck, trying to and flailing to play it off as a dismount. Silence! Winifred bellows. She turns her attention back towards me, keeping the blade of the dagger pointed squarely at my throat. Now, where were we? Isabella is drawing nearer. My eyes flit back to hers, and immediately I can tell she's trying to tell me something. It doesn't take too much, just a few subtle gestures and head tilt or two, and I know exactly what she's trying to say. I nod once, just barely, letting her know that I understand, as I begin filling in her plan with a few flourishes of my own in my head. Hand over the stone, girl, and perhaps I'll spare you and your friend, says Winifred, holding out her hand. Is it really more carnage you want tonight? More suffering? Her vile voice is hot in my ear. Ugh. I try not to think about Travis, or Katie, or Mom, or Dad, or Aunt Annie, or anyone else in the hell because of me. Closing my eyes and forcing myself to breathe normally, I stick my hand into my pocket, my fingers trembling as they close around the only thing that can get us out of this mess without being damned for all eternity. As I pull it from my pocket, I open my eyes again, looking to Isabella for assurance. Good girl, Mary says. This really is what's best. We promise. She smiles in a way that I'm sure she thinks is non-threatening. I hold out my hand, fist still clenched tightly. Winifred holds out her own, ready to snatch the blood moonstone from me. I can't believe I'm doing this. Telling myself that this is the right move, that this is how we get out of here alive, I open my hand and pitch the precious object over the side of the railing, down toward the sharp rocks below. With a collective gasp, the Sanderson sisters turn, leaning over the railing, trying desperately to see where the stone landed. I take their distraction as an opportunity to move away from Winifred and closer to Isabella, hoping that I have at least a few seconds before they figure out that it was Katie's car keys and not the stone at all, which is snug in my other pocket. It's only seconds before Winifred rounds on me, though, and arms raised, dagger in hand, and eyes burning with a kind of rage that is both unnerving and surprising, even from her. You, she growls, voice low and dangerous. You've ruined everything, you stupid, insolent little. She lunges. Isabella steps in front of me, shielding me as she casts a bolt of lightning at Winifred, which knocks Winifred backward. Winifred looks stunned for a moment before her features return to anger, and she lifts her hands, casting her own bolt in our direction. Isabella doesn't hesitate, and her bolt collides with Winifred's in midair, with a shower of sparks and a bone-chilling crackle. Behind Winifred, Mary and Sarah seem to be trying to hide behind one another, but they only keep bumping into each other. Faces grim with concentration, Isabella and Winifred struggle to battle for the upper hand, neither quite getting it. I look on, unsure of how to help, when Isabella chances a glance at me. Now, Poppy! Isabella shouts over the crackling of the lightning, then nods her head in the direction of the water, the shore, and the rocks below. It takes me a moment as I try desperately to put together what she's trying to say, but then it clicks. Oh, right! I stick my hand in my pocket, this time withdrawing the red-blued moonstone. Pulling back my arm, I launch the stone into the air, tossing it high above the water into a quiet, graceful arc. I pray this works. You yap! I shout to Winifred. The movement catches Winifred's eye as she wavers. Her attacks on Isabella interrupted as she watches the stone soar through the air. The stone! Winifred shrieks. The stone! Sarah echoes. The stone, the stone, the stone! Mary's mouth tenses. Uh-oh, she mumbles, eyes wide. Winifred is stunned, face frozen in disbelief. Isabella doesn't waste a second, though. We zap! Oh, I get it. It's what Winifred had said earlier. You yap, we zap. Or I zap. Okay, I get it now. I was a little confused. We zap, shouts Isabella. And as soon as the stone's clear of the tower, she shoots a bolt of lightning straight for it, and the bolt and the stone connect almost immediately in midair. The result is blinding. As the yellow bolt strikes the stone, it lets off a brilliant, searing white light that blooms in a halo around it. It lights up the water, the tower, the trees, and the witches scrabbling below. The Sanderson sisters draw their hands up, covering their eyes, howling. The light hangs there for a long moment, and the air around us goes silent and still. It's like the world's on pause as we look on, squinting against the intensity of the display. The water's parted off the shore like there's a massive crater in it that goes all the way to the rocky and sandy bed below. Then, all at once, the halo of light begins to rush back toward the stone in a radiant flash. The water rushes back with a roar, collapsing in on itself. With a deafening whoosh, a shock wave barrels from the stone, rushing towards us with tremendous force. I reach out and grab the railing, hoping it's strong enough to withstand the blow. To my left, the Sanderson sisters are scrambling, trying to stay on their feet as the shock wave makes a landfall. On my right, Isabella is doubled over, hands on her knees, exhausted from the effort. She doesn't even see it coming. I open my mouth to shout at her, to warn her, but it's too late. The shock wave reaches us like a tidal wave, and Isabella hits it with full force of it. Then there's no time to think about it, and no time to calculate odds or make a plan. There's just this moment, this force, and Isabella is being swept away from me. So I don't think. I let go of the railing and dive forward, reaching for her, wrapping my fingers around for her forearm. And then, at the last possible second, I throw out my other arm and barely catch the railing, holding on as tightly as I can. The Sanderson sisters are swept off the tower with a blood-curdling howl. Hold on! I shout to Isabella above the noise. She grabs onto my forearm, holding tight as the shock wave lifts us both away from the lighthouse, floating, anchored only by my grasp on this centuries-old railing. After a few seconds that seem to drag on for minutes, the shock wave passes, and we begin to fall. For a brief moment, I'm positive that we're about to fall from the tower or crash into the rusted, steely exterior, or if we're really unlucky, both. But then Isabella lifts a hand and, with what seems like hero Herculean effort, conjures a bolt of lightning like a rope. Her brow furrowed in concentration as she directs it, wrapping it around the tallest point at the top of the tower and far away from the metal railing. I can feel the charge of electricity where our skin touches. It doesn't hurt, really, but it feels like my entire body is vibrating with energy. Sort of like that too much coffee feeling amplified by 1,000. Ooh, I know that feeling. Isabella pulls us towards the balcony with a final surge of energy, and we clatter onto the deck. It's not a soft landing, but it's better than a bed of sharp rocks and a long, long way below. I lie still for a moment, trying to figure out if anything's broken. Bruised, but otherwise intact. I pull myself up. Isabella, I stammer. Next to me on the deck, Isabella lies motionless. My heart stops. Isabella! I try again, louder, moving toward her. Isabella, can you hear me? With one hand on her shoulder and the other on her cheek, I try to wake her up, but nothing happens. No. Hot tears splash down my face. I shake Isabella again, feeling her neck for a pulse. Please, no, please, I sob. She remains still, and my world shatters into a million pieces. That's the end of that chapter. Told you it was short. Oh, look at that. Got through with less than 15 minutes. Alright, I'm going to take a quick break. Ignore this ad. That is hashtag for the kids. And I'm going to drink some water. See you back in a few minutes. It's been very interesting to look at the pictures at the top of each chapter and kind of try to assume what's going to happen next. Honestly, with the last chapter, the image I would glance at, I thought we would see Billy by now. The zombie? In the commercial, I saw him, briefly, chasing after Travis. I'm starting to wonder if that's something that's only going to be in the movie. And it's comic relief. And I wonder if they were even on this plane of existence. I got my assumptions. Anyway, I have a feeling that we're going to hear about what was happening over in hell meanwhile. It may be brief, though. Or maybe a lot of it's going to be left to our imagination. Let's continue, page 500. A bit like magic. My whole world is spinning again, and it's like every ounce of my breath has left my lungs at once. My vision blurs with tears. This can't. She can't. I didn't even. A pained groan. Isabella opens her eyes slowly, blinking. Magic sucks. She manages to get out. Then she pushes herself up, leaning against the tower wall, and cracks a small smile. Oh, thank God, I breathe. throwing my arms around her neck and pulling her in, holding her tightly. I was so afraid that I didn't finish the thought. Isabella wraps her arms around me too. Behind us, the light still spins, creaking and groaning with every rotation, and bathing us in warm light that's just now the side of blinding. Yeah, Isabella says quietly. Me too. There's a long beat of silence as we stay like this, grateful to have survived, but afraid of what comes next. Our families, our friends, the rest of the town, are they just... Look! Isabella says, pulling back but keeping an arm around my shoulder. She points towards the trees and the ground far below. There, in the faint light of pre-dawn, hundreds of green wisps appear and extinguish. Stunned witches give way to humans. One by one, dazed citizens of Salem appear, taking in the trees, the still churning water, and the early morning light. Travis, I say quietly, standing and looking over the edge of the railing. I don't see him. Not among the growing crowds of humans trying to piece together what's going on. He's not by the trees or the boathouse or the gate. And then I hear him. Poppy! He jogs into view from the base of the tower, waving his hands above his head, beaming. Oh, he's not as close as I thought, so I guess he would have been more like, Poppy! Travis! I grab Isabella's hand without thinking and pull the door to the balcony, flying down the now cracked and crumbled spiral steps 2 at a time until I'm on the ground, bursting through the door. He's there, grinning, and I throw my arms around him, hugging him tightly. Laughing, he does the same. Worried, were you? Just a little, I say, shrugging nonchalantly. Glad you're okay, Travis. Glad you're okay, Travis, Isabella says, pulling him into a hug. Thanks, he says, grinning. The highway to hell is shorter than I thought. Isabella and I groan in unison, rolling our eyes, but I can't fight the smile creeping across my face. Dennison, what the hell are my keys doing in a tree? Katie rounds the corner, failing to put off her signature scowl before breaking it into a grin. No one is more surprised than I am when I step forward and hug Katie, who hugs me back, even if it's just for a second before she steps away. Looks like you did it, weirdo, she says, but there's no hint of malice in her voice. She smiles, somewhere between impressed and relieved. Couldn't have done it without you, Katie, I say truthfully. Thanks for sticking around. She plays it off, but I can tell it means something to her. Yeah, well, you're right. You definitely couldn't have done it without me, she says. I mean, I was kind of a badass. You were, I laugh. Travis and Isabella hug Katie in turn, and I'm about to ask whether this means our friend group is growing by one more when I hear something that stops me. Max, don't touch that, comes an irritated voice from the other side of the boathouse. It's a voice I'd know anywhere. Aunt Danny? I whisper, almost afraid to believe it. I follow the sound of the voice, slowly at first, then picking up speed until I'm jogging around the side of the lighthouse. There, near the dock and the rocky shoreline, are Mom, Dad, and Aunt Danny. Oh! And Maelstrom, too. Oh, gosh, guys. I don't know if you saw that. Maelstrom's been in my lap. Oh, gosh, they can't see you, buddy. No, you guys can't see him all that well. Sorry about that. All right. What? Oh, golly. Okay. All right. 15 feathers later. Anyway, while I was reading the story, he reaches up his paw. I thought it was kind of cute. And anyway, I thought maybe y'all saw that too, but sorry, buddy. He's like, it's okay. The family's coming together. Here we go. How about a little kitty lap time? Ready, Maelstrom? Dad is crouching near the ground, picking up what looks from afar like a piece of broken glass. As I get closer, I see it's a shard of the blood moonstone, glowing faintly. Poppy, Mom sighs in relief, rushing forward to gather me into a crushing embrace. We were so worried. Same, I laugh, relieved. You have no idea. Aunt Annie and Dad stand behind Mom, grinning. Looks like you pulled it off, kid. Oh, excuse me, wrong person. Looks like you pulled it off, kid, Danny says, beaming proudly. Told you could do it. Dad puts a hand on my shoulder, his eyes crinkling at the corners as he smiles. You did good, Poppy, he says. We're so proud of you. Thanks, I say, relishing the feeling. I look back over my shoulder to see Isabella talking animatedly with her parents. Travis gathering as many of his siblings up into a hug as he can, and Katie and Principal Taylor having what looks like an uncharacteristically warm conversation. I didn't do it alone, I said, turning back to my family. You're still grounded, though, says Mom. Oh, totally, Dad nods, very grounded. What? My mouth drops open. But I brought you back from the literal pits of hell. And Danny smirks. Right, but you also sort of sent us there, so it was really the least you could do. I open my mouth to issue a rebuttal, but I stop short when I feel a hand on my shoulder. Poppy, says Isabella from behind me. Yeah? I ask. Can I talk to you for a second? She says, looking unusually shy. I turn to follow Isabella, who leads us around the other side of the lighthouse, away from the crowd and closer to the water. I just wanted to thank you, she says, turning to face me. She talks fast, as if she's only mustered 20 seconds with worth of courage, and doesn't think she can fit everything in before it runs out. I'm gonna bring the camera back up. For what? I ask. I didn't do anything. I mean, you destroyed the moonstone. You were incredible. She gives an emotional snort, tears pulling in her eyes. So were you, Poppy. You were the hero today. I mean, hero feels like a strong word, but I'll take it, I say, smirking. It was a team effort. She cracks a smile, but just barely. Sorry, I'm just bad at this. Isabella Richards, bad at something? Never, I say jokingly, but it's clear that she's actually trying to tell me something. What's going on, Isabella? I ask. She's staring at the ground, so I dip my head to look her in the eyes. Hey, I say, what is it? In truth, I feel like I kind of know what's going on for the first time in weeks, but I can't tell if it's all just in my head. All this time, Isabella stood up and did the right thing. She went all in to help me fix everything, and although there were many things I'd liked about her before, tonight has shown me that there really are seemingly endless things to like about Isabella Richards. Her eyes are shiny with tears as she looks at me, and I want to wipe them away, but that seems too intimate. Look, Poppy, I'm sorry for everything, says Isabella. I had no idea that the Sanderson house and the spirit board would lead to. She trails off, looking down at the ground. I can't believe you almost lost your family because of something that I did. Hey, I say again, tilting her chin up gently so that I can see her eyes, which are shiny with unshed tears. You couldn't have known. This wasn't your fault. I'm the one who insisted we follow through. She takes a deep breath. It was my idea, though, and I'm sorry that being my friend almost got you killed. Worth it, I say with a shrug, trying to play nonchalant. Though I'm still a little confused as to why the coolest girl in school wants to hang out with me at all. Isabella smiles a little and looks up at me. Come on, Poppy, she says. Can't you tell? My emotions are suddenly spinning out of control. Can I? I feel confused, and I'm fighting like hell to keep myself from giving in to hope here. Yeah, she says shyly. You're a cool girl, Poppy, and you're beautiful. And I like that you have dreams that are bigger than Salem, but you still love this place. I like that you try to see the best in everyone. I like that you do anything to protect the people you love, including batting a coven of evil witches on top of a lighthouse tower. I like you. She pauses, her eyes huge and dark. This has been the strangest, scariest night of my life, but I got to spend it with you. And strange and horrifying as it was, I wouldn't take it back. Not a second of it. With that, she leans forward, pressing her lips to mine. Her breath is soft and warm, and when her lips touch mine, I feel a crackle of electricity. It moves from her hands to my hands and up through my arms and into my chest, and my heart soars. She puts one hand on my cheek, and an electric current races through my veins, thrilling but not painful. Interesting. I've never been kissed before, but I know this is what a first kiss should be. A movie theater kiss. Blown up on the big screen, a kiss for the history books, a kiss that feels like, well, a bit like magic. We pull apart, but her hand drops to mine. Me too, I say awkwardly. I mean, I like you too. A lot. We grin at each other, and Isabella looks down at her feet again. I've never seen her so vulnerable, and it makes her even more beautiful. I want this moment to last forever. Aunt Danny comes around the corner and smiles when she sees we're holding hands. Hey, you two, she calls out. Let's get home and eat. I'm starving. Plus, I haven't had one single cookie of your mom's, and I was in hell for, she checks her watch, way too long. We turn and walk back down the hill towards my family, Isabella's arm brushing against mine. Halfway down, I glance over at her, and she gives me a little grin. Dad is waiting for us at the bottom of the hill, and Principal Taylor stands by his side. As we get closer, I can hear the two men talking. I'm sorry I left you hanging that night, Jay, Dad says. That wasn't right. Principal Taylor looks a little embarrassed, but he takes a deep breath and looks at Dad in the eyes. It's all right, Hollywood, he says, smiling. Ancient history now. I mean, that was an entire witch-apocalypse ago. He extends his hand and Dad takes it, shaking it heartily. Too right. Maybe we shouldn't leave all the hope and change to the kids, says Dad. Aunt Danny races ahead of us towards Mom and Dad. Hey, Allison, how much party food do you have left? Because I could really go for a junk food brunch. Plus, we haven't really wrapped up for the Halloween festivities yet, so it's not too late to watch our favorite Halloween movie. I wonder what that is. Mom and Dad both groan. Come on, she cries pleadingly. It's a cult classic. We've watched every Halloween since we were kids. She shoves her way between them and links arm with them. It'll be fun. I can hear them sigh, and I laugh to myself. It happens every Halloween, and every Halloween, Aunt Danny gets her way. I look at Travis, Isabella, and Katie. We did it, I say proudly. And if we can save Salem from a trio of evil witches, we can do anything. Together, says Isabella with a smile. Together, I repeat happily. All right, saps, we get it, says Katie, rolling her eyes but cracking a smile. 4 is a coven, right? Last chapter. We're on page 510. Material Ghost. Whoops. I can't believe you have us back here already, Dennison, says Katie, stooping to examine her headstone that's almost invisible under the cloudy night sky. In a cemetery less than 24 hours after the invasion of the real witches of Inferno County? Bold move. Second, says Travis. Not that I'm totally supportive of Witch Hunt 2.0. It just feels weird. He's right. It does feel weird to be back in the cemetery, so close to where the whole thing started. Next to me, Isabella's quiet, but I sense she's anxious. I'm sure she's fine, I whisper, taking Isabella's hand and giving it a gentle squeeze. I probably should have taken that water break. She's here somewhere. Isabella nods, squeezing my hand in return, but says nothing. She looks nervous, and there's lingering exhaustion written on her face. I know how she feels. We're all still recovering from our filtrations with death, and an eternity spent filling in for some malevolent witch in hell. I can't believe that you all came here with a spirit board after Allison warned you about the Blood Moonstone, said Aunt Danny, hands in the pockets of her jeans. It's like you heard increased magical activity and thought, I know, I think we'll summon the dead, maybe commit a misdemeanor or 8, and see where the night takes us. It seemed like a good idea at the time, I shrug. I hear Isabella laugh lightly next to me. I think it worked out, she whispers, bumping my shoulder gently with hers. Me too, I say with a chuckle, happy to hear her laugh. She spent most of the day worried about Elizabeth. Ghosts disappear with the dawn. For the last time we saw her, she was being scattered with the wind all over Winter Island. A moment later, Isabella's smile falters and disappears. We should go, she says. It's getting cold and there's no sign of her. Maybe she's just... Apologies, dear, says a voice from behind us. Taking this form is exhausting, and after the evening we had, I'm afraid I've been resting most of the day. What's going on? Who's that? What's going on? Isabella turns around slowly, like she isn't quite ready to let herself believe what she's hearing. But when I look back over my shoulder, there she is. Elizabeth is standing amongst the headstones near the chapel, hands clasped in front of her. Whoa! Aunt Danny breathes. I know what she means. Though I just saw a ghost for the first time last night, it's difficult to fully appreciate or remember just how strange they are in the, well, not flesh, I guess. I can't imagine what it's like to finally see a ghost again after all these years. She's described Binks plenty of times, but at a certain point, words just fall flat. Elizabeth, Isabella says as she strides over to stand in front of Elizabeth's translucent, shimmering form. How did you... I can only move from here temporarily. I am, for better or worse, tied to this place forever. Wherever I go, I'm always here. Not confusing at all, Katie mutters. I shoot her a look. Are you okay? Isabella asks. Aside from discovering that my mother used me as a pawn and that she makes my sisters look positively benevolent by comparison? She asks, smiling wearily. Fine. Like you, I suspect, just a bit tired. Isabella nods. Thank you, she says, for helping us, for helping me. I never would have been able to... Of course you would have, Isabella, says Elizabeth, moving closer to Isabella. You may not know much about your powers yet, but you are an extraordinary witch, and you're meant for extraordinary things. Isabella shoots her a shy smile for a moment, all speechless. Did you get what you hoped to? Isabella asks, out of helping us? All of that and more, says Elizabeth, reaching forward with a touch of Isabella's cheek. I'm so very proud of you. All of you. You showed great courage. Without you, this would have been a dark day, followed by many more to come. That's something of an understatement, I think, says a new voice. Binks materializes next to Elizabeth, followed by Emily, who stands beside him. Binks! Aunt Danny rushes forward, stopping just in front of him and grinning. It's good to see you this side of the veil, Binks laughs. Is everything all right now? Well, we're not in hell anymore, so I can't complain. Also, you were capable of appearing the whole time? And you didn't once think of dropping by to say hi? She crosses her arm petulantly. So much for I shall always be with you, jerk face. Well, you didn't exactly pop by this cemetery for a quick chat, Binks shoots back. And ghosts make house calls is typically frowned upon. Terrible for real estate prices. She frowns for a moment longer, then breaks into laughter. Touché. Okay. So that's why she never heard from him. That's amazing. Emily looks towards me, and then steps forward, pulling her hand from behind her back to reveal my camera. No way, I say, taking it gently and inspecting it, save for a few scruff marks, is intact. You found it! I figured you might want it back, she says with a shrug. Oh, it's Emily, I'm sorry, I was thinking it was Elizabeth. I figured you might want it back, she says with a shrug. I'm still not sure what it does, but it seemed ever so important. Thank you, I say, popping the cover off the lens. Do you all mind if I try something? I ask the three ghosts. They shake their heads, but are clearly confused. I put my eye to the viewfinder, make a few adjustments, and then snap a photo. For posterity, I say. You live in a very strange world, Poppy Dennison, Binks muses. But I hope that one day, one way or another, you'll always find what it is you're looking for. He puts a hand on Emily's shoulder and smiles. They both fade gradually, leaving only Elizabeth. Pardon me for speaking quickly, dear, Elizabeth says, turning back to Isabella. My energy is waning. There's so much I'd like to tell you now, but it will have to wait for another day. Until then, it's essential that you understand one terribly important thing. This doesn't sound good, Travis says under his breath. You can never really kill a witch, Elizabeth continues. My sisters are gone, but so long as there is wickedness in this world, there will always be a place where evil finds a home. What are you saying? Asks Isabella, her tone quiet but nervous. I'm saying that Salem needs to be protected, says Elizabeth, and that you've proven yourself more than capable. She looks at each of us. Remain vigilant. Weed out hate and ignorance and persecution whenever and wherever you can, and hold tight to one another. She smiles sadly. If I had had the support of friends like yours, I imagine that things may have ended up differently for me. Elizabeth begins to fade. Wait, Isabella says. There's more I have so many questions. You'll always be able to find me here, Isabella, Elizabeth says, but I think you'll discover you already have the answers. And with that, a knowing smile, she disappears. Silence falls over our small group, all of us stunned into remaining quiet, at least for a moment. Wow, Travis says, running a hand over his hair. That's a lot. Yeah, Isabella says quietly, it is. So, it isn't over? Is that what I'm getting here? Oh, excuse me. So, it isn't over? Is that what I'm getting here? Asks Katie. Because I have to be honest, I'm really looking forward to sleeping in for about 24 hours and taking a nice long break from thinking about witches and ghosts and hell. Sounds like we might not have that luxury, I say. Fighting evil is going to have to wait, though, says Aunt Danny, putting a hand on my shoulder. We promised your parents we'd have you home in an hour. Isabella nods, walking back towards me as we all turn to make our way out of the cemetery. She links an arm through mine. Thanks for coming back with me, she says. I'm just so glad she's okay. Of course, I say. We walk in silence for a moment. So, how are you doing? I ask. Ghostly ancestors and a new set of magical powers is a lot for one night. She considers that for a moment. Honestly, I feel a little relieved, she says. I always felt like there was this part of me that was missing. And finding Elizabeth, finding out all about all of this and who I really am, it's a relief. It feels right, even if it's terrifying. Isabella bumps her shoulder with mine once more. I'm feeling like I'm ready to take on whatever comes next, she says, smiling gently. Well, I'm feeling like I'm ready for pizza, says Travis, and bed, and a 12-hour nap. We all laugh in agreement and head toward the car. Isabella's right. It's a relief to know that there's more to Salem than made-up stories and disturbing preoccupation with a particularly dark period of history. But I can't shake the feeling that there's something we're missing, something we forgot. And then, all at once, the realization hits me like a freight train. Winifred's spellbook is missing. Again. Saw that coming. We don't have much luck at all, just 4 pages. I'm going to pause here just for a moment and drink some water. GFE Dext 67. Welcome to the Griffin's Nest. Thank you for the follow. Sorry for the lack of announcement. During these story readings, we don't have the announcements or the alerts on, but glad to have you about just the same. Hang tight, friends. Be back in just a moment. All right, pardon me about that. Saw me stretching a few seconds ago. Yeah, I forgot to switch the screen. But that's usually what I'm doing when I'm stepping away for a break if I'm not going downstairs. Just taking a stretch. In this case, I was reading on ahead to have a better idea of what kind of voice I need. Page 518. An eye for an eye. This seems more like an epilogue than a final chapter, but let's continue. An eye for an eye. 1 year later, Salem, 2019. Posters of a missing teenage girl plaster telephone poles, mailboxes, and the Salem post office. They were put up over a year ago, but someone kept pinning up fresh printouts over the old, withered ones. On a bustling residential street filled with trick-or-treaters, there was a lamppost with one of the posters attached to it, illuminated by the moonlight. It shows the pretty girl beaming as if she had just won the lottery. Under her photo, the sign reads, Missing, Shay Womack. Last seen in Salem Common, Salem, Massachusetts. Date missing, October 31st, 2018. Age, 17. Height, 5'3". Hair, long, brown. Last seen wearing white t-shirt and jeans. Please call the Salem County Sheriff's Office. A teenage boy regards it. Thanks for switching places with me, he smirks. Not that you had much of a choice in the matter. He tears down the missing poster, laughing, and slinks across the sidewalk. Nice costume, mister, shouts a little trick-or-treater dressed as a princess. The teenage boy dips his chin, obscuring his face with the wide brim of his pointed black hat, and keeps walking, his long emerald green cloak swirling fiercely in his wake. He turns up a red brick walk, moving half like a shadow and half like a snake, and stops in front of a colonial-style two-story house with white clapboard siding and dark shutters. Party music and bright lights flood from its open windows. He crumples the poster in his fist, and he tosses it over his shoulder, then regards the house for a moment longer. He takes a step closer to it. When the front door opens, a warm glow from within spilling onto the sidewalk. He steps into the shadows, avoiding the light. Under the cover of darkness, he turns and leaves the property, dashing across the suburban streets amidst a flurry of eager trick-or-treaters. He passes happy homes and streets full of laughter, barely staying out of sight, but definitely blending into the crowd and the night. It's only when he reaches the edge of the town's quiet cemetery that he slows to a stroll. As he makes his way past ornate tombstones, simple grave markers, enormous stone crosses, and grand mausoleums, his eyes scan the grounds, looking for something in particular. When at last he finds it, he stoops, squinting as he inspects it. The headstone's once detailed surface is blurred by the forces of time and nature. Still, he can make out the simple skull and crossbones atop the inscription. He stands and pulls Winifred's spellbook from the fold of his cloak, smirking at the confused swivel of the book's single cloudy green eye. He gazes back down at it, his remaining eye glowing a matching shade of green. There, he says gently, stroking the puckered lead and the delicate silver filigree that surrounded the eye. His other hand rises subconsciously to his face, touching the empty socket. He still misses it. The eye in the book blinks once or twice, each blink slower than the last until it seems to fall asleep. The boy licks his thumb in the pages through the book, almost lazily. Yes, he says, as one might say to a quiet sleeping child. Then he parrots the ghost who has stood in this exact spot 1 year ago. You can never really kill a witch, especially, he chuckles, if you don't know he's there. He finds the page in the spell book he's been seeking and reads aloud. Unfaithful brother, long since dead, deep asleep in thy warmy bed, wiggle thy toes, open thine eyes, twist thy fingers towards the sky. Life is sweet, be not shy, on thy feet, so saith I. Before the last syllable even leaves his lips, The ground begins to violently shake and quake. Nearby, the other tombstones lay still, but the one in front of him sinks into the ground. An old wooden coffin slowly rises from the dirt as the boy looks on triumphantly. The ground goes as still and as quiet as the night. The top of the coffin creaks open, shudders, and slides off as a figure slowly sits up. The teen witch grins. Welcome back, Billy. Great things await us. Acknowledgements. This book exists because the Sanderson sisters and the actresses who portrayed them gave the world an unforgettable magic, mayhem, and joy. It also exists thanks to the several unsung heroes. I'm grateful to my fabulous editor, Eric Guerin, for his help in spinning the tale, to the incredible artist Matt Griffin for illuminating it, to Amy and Logan for always lighting candles when I find myself in the dark, and so many more who infused these pages with heart, sweat, and other witch-worthy ingredients. I'm also grateful to you, reader, for keeping the Hocus Pocus spirit alive and well. May your cauldron overflow with something sweet, and may your broomstick never be purloined. This has been a Nanny Griffin reading production. Maybe that was a bad joke. That's the end. What an ending. I'm going to stop it there. And I think what I might do is have a bonus episode sometime in the near future. I'm not sure when. First, we're going to watch Hocus Pocus 2 with my friends. And maybe I can have a showing of it in the Discord. I'd really like that, and I hope you'll join me sometime. Thank you for joining me with this story. It's been great, and I've really enjoyed this. And wow. They could stop the story there. But what if there was another story that came up pretty soon? Better yet, how about 20 years from now? Now we know where that eye came from. See you next time, Griffins. And hope to see you again real soon. Bye-bye, 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 bye-bye.